Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we are in the very early stages of the free agency signing period for this 2038 to 2039 offseason. The expectation is that we're not going to be incredibly active in free agency, although we have made one offer, which we'll talk about shortly, that we talked about briefly at the end of the last episode. Did just go through the expansion draft, which, using the default settings, was not as impactful as I thought it might be as we think about what happened in the expansion draft and the guys that were likely to lose in free agency. A few key changes coming to the team next year. Longtime DH Ted Miller is a free agent. He'll likely be replaced by Eric Mokeen, who we picked up in a trade with the Braves. Elian Pena, who's been our starting shortstop for the last couple of years, likely to be replaced by Derby Mahez, who is a very good defensive player, but has at times struggled offensively and has pretty consistently struggled to remain healthy. And then our number 5 starter, Aaron Bell, likely to be replaced in the rotation by Dovid Guadron, who was a important draft pick of ours from a couple of years ago. So not monumental changes likely coming to these Rockies this offseason. Mentioned that we did make an offer to bring on the shortstop Travis Prince Albert Ramstad. With those defensive ratings, don't think that I'll intend to play him as a shortstop, although as we just talked about, it's very conceivable that Mahez may have some injury issues going forward, but the thought would be to get Ramstad into the lineup, probably at second base or third base, and looking at his skills. If we want to play him at second base, we're certainly going to need to be playing him there consistently during spring training to get him competent at that position. Don't necessarily think there's going to be a ton else that we focus on in free agency this year. We'll continue to monitor any options as we move towards the winter meetings and the Rule 5 draft. Maybe there will be a little bit to do in the trade market, but I think the main goal in this episode is going to be to sim ahead about a month and a half to the beginning of the international amateur free agent signing period. Take a look at the players who are available out there, and then hopefully turn things over to the worldwide scouting department for some thoughts on what we should do this year. And we've made it through a week and a half or so, I think, since the last time we checked in. Didn't do anything in the winter meetings. We did just get Mr. Ramstad signed today. Going to owe a third-round draft pick as compensation. The fans excited to have him on board, but our fan interest was already 100, so can't see the real impact of that. Ramstad overall $74 million over 5 years. A little bit front-loaded, $18 million this upcoming year, then $12 million a year for the next 3 seasons after that. We've got a team option for the 4th year, and then a player option for $20 million in the 5th year. So conceivably, this really could just be a 3-year contract for us. At a total of $42 million, so $14 million a year on average over the next 3 years guaranteed, and then we will get into a position where we potentially might need to think about Ramstad's future with our organization. If you're wondering about what's going on otherwise in the free agent market, we don't really have the ability to compete for some of the top pitchers who are available. Going to basically just see where those guys end up signing. If we wanted to get real creative, we could try to trade away Noah Schultz and the $25 million that he's set to make for this upcoming season, and then perhaps go after one of the higher end pitchers, but not going to focus on that. As far as position players, you may remember Jason House. He's a guy who the Cubs inexplicably cut and put on the free agent market a year ago. We ended up going in and sending him back to the Cubs. They've done the same, in my opinion, stupid thing this year. So he's on the free agent market again, given that the Cubs GM just seems insistent on cutting a guy who's a pretty solid player and arbitration eligible. We're not sending him back to the Cubs this year, but we're also not going to compete for him and sign him at that very bargain amount of less than $1.5 million. Hopefully, one of the other AI general managers will be fortunate enough and smart enough to realize that that's a potentially outstanding deal and bring him on board, since the Cubs don't really want him. And see our old buddy Ted Miller remains on the free agent market, as does James Wood, who we brought on board as a rental just before the trade deadline this past season. And as we get ready for the Rule 5 draft in a couple days, have some big decisions ahead of us. Some of them are pretty obvious. Carlos Barrel Davia, Mike Witherspoon, and the young catcher Elliot Bedford are all going to go on our 40-man roster to protect them. But you can see we've still got several other players with pretty good potential, including the youngster Ted Slade and Zach Nelson, as well as Hendrik Jan van Gorkum, who are all guys that we talked about ahead of the expansion draft, who we didn't protect in the cases of Van Gorkum and Nelson. I think we did end up protecting Slade at this point, although honestly I'm not sure. But obviously not going to be able to retain all of them. We'll let you know what we decide to do before we get to the Rule 5 draft. And given that it's pretty likely that we'll have 40 players protected on the secondary roster, unlikely that we're going to be significant players in the Rule 5 this year. And we've made our decisions on the 40-man. We are going to protect the young slugger Ted Slade, who had 53 home runs in the high levels of the minors a year ago. And we're also going to protect the starting pitching prospect Bobby England. Really love the personality and the stamina. 22 years old, the former 12th round pick, still has a long way to go in terms of his development. But he is a guy who, if he reaches his full potential, and he does have high adaptability, high work ethic, and a big investment in player development in terms of our dollar investment, as well as the strength of the coaches in our farm system. I think that England still could become a pretty useful major leaguer. So the three highest potential guys that we're not going to protect: Hendrik Jan van Gorkum, guy who was an IAFA signing in 2031. Just really question his bat a bit. And at 25 years old, clearly not having made it above Double-A ball, we don't view him as a prime prospect at this point. Andy Pinckney, like his profile, but he's almost 24 years old, fragile physically, certainly a reliever based on his stamina, and he hasn't even made it to Double-A yet in our organization. And then Jack Nelson, the 22-year-old former 18th round pick. He was a guy that I know some members of the Worldwide Scouting Department were intrigued by heading into the expansion draft. Another guy who combined for 53 homers last year between high A and Double-A. But don't see him, when we look at his true potential, as a impact hitter, although he's certainly a potentially useful player. Nelson is, in my mind, the one of the three that I would most not like to lose in the upcoming expansion draft. And we'll talk to you about what happens when we get there. And we've now made it to the Rule 5 draft, and I realize I think I've been referring to it half the time as the expansion draft, because I still have the expansion draft on my mind after the last few episodes. We'll see what happens. And we did end up losing 3 players in the Rule 5 draft. As anticipated, Jack Nelson was selected from us He's now a member of the is it the Texas Rangers organization? T is for the he's on the he's on the Salt Lake Trappers. Oh, that's interesting. So he'll be on the new expansion team. I'm looking at this logo and I'm like, Salt Lake. I'm still thinking a minor league team, forgetting that I just expanded them to the majors. So a member of the Salt Lake Trappers for Jack Nelson, Diego Medina, picked by the Indianapolis Racers. So actually good to see the expansion teams, even though they didn't raid the roster the way that we kind of thought they might in the expansion draft, to at least take advantage of the Rule 5 draft. Chris Roy, who's been a fifth outfielder for the last couple of years. Lil D, no longer part of the organization, and he's with the Salt Lake Trappers as well. So lost 3 players in the Rule 5 draft, all going to probably get a pretty good opportunity to become everyday players next year with the expansion teams that they've been picked by. And as we head to New Year's Eve for 2039, got the mid-term report cards for our development lab, and you can see only one program on track, Eric Schweitzer with his improved control program. So not ideal in terms of how the development lab is working out for us thus far. As we noted, Schweitzer, the only one who's on track. Carlos Bear Barrel de Villa, unfortunately, top prospect in the organization, struggling with his plate discipline. Hoffmeister, Reyes, and Russell, the young pitchers, along with Justin Denmark Morgan, all frustrated with their programs. The second baseman, Alex Gamez, and Nils Mensch, another infielder, also frustrated with the programs they're working on as well. So not the greatest beginning to this trip through the development lab for our Colorado Rockies. And the rental from last summer, James Wood, is gone. Fans not happy that we let the veteran outfielder go. Signed with the Pirates 2 years at $9.6 million a year, so probably not what he was hoping for. The fans upset, but given that we were already well over 100 in terms of fan interest, no demonstrable impact to the ratings that we can see. Also got the Hall of Fame voting results today. Nobody made the Hall this year. The top voters, Aroldis Chapman, Chris Sale, Jacob deGrom, Bryce Harper, and Jose Ramirez, all with over 50% of the vote. You can still see some very familiar names from today's baseball among those who were not elected this season. And we've finally made it to the start of the international amateur free agent signing period. We've got $4.96 million to potentially spend this year, which is about $500,000 to $1 million less than most teams. 3 pitchers that we have been looking more closely at most recently. A couple of relievers, 17-year-old Alejandro Correa, left-hander, looks like a respectable-looking relief prospect. Guy with enough stamina, if he was able to add a third pitch into the arsenal, could potentially be a borderline major league starter, looking for $1.1 million. Starting pitcher Edwin Reyes, 16-year-old. Looks like definitely going to have enough stamina to start. Potential 4-pitch arsenal for the 16-year-old lefty. If he reaches his full potential, certainly looks like he could be a more than useful major leaguer. Low demand of only $200,000, so he's a guy who could potentially slot in as an interesting prospect. The highest potential pitcher out there, at least according to our scout, is the starting pitcher Andy Navarro, looking for $2.4 million. The 17-year-old, high baseball IQ, low financial ambition, good stamina, outstanding at holding on runners. We think he can eventually throw close to triple digits. Only a 3-pitch combination, and he's got a ton of work to do on that pitiful curveball to turn it into a major league pitch. But ultimately think that his stuff, his movement and control could all be above average if he reaches his full potential. Another lefty, and although Navarro is the most expensive of the 3 guys we talked about in terms of his demand, he's also the furthest along in his development, and as we talked about, certainly has the highest ceiling if you were to believe our scout. And we've had 7 position players in our training camp most recently. All have pretty solid ceilings, and one who we'll talk about at the end has a potentially outstanding ceiling. Center fielder Gerardo Castellan, 16-year-old, soon to be 17-year-old right-handed hitting outfielder. Looks more like a corner outfielder than the center field position that he's been playing. Like the durability, decent speed, worry heavily about the strikeouts and making contact, but think he could be well above average in gap power, home run power, and eye if he reaches his full potential. Shortstop Moises Tarin, 17-year-old, soon to be 18-year-old shortstop. Interesting looking defensively, like the high baseball IQ. Does have extreme development risk. I think he could be a very interesting contact hitter with plus gap power, albeit only slightly above average speed and poor base running instincts. Don't think that the home run power is ever going to be there, and a bit of a free swinger, although he's not going to strike out a ton. Doesn't have the greatest eye in the world, I guess would be a better way to describe that than being a free swinger. Third baseman John Moreno, also known as Boomer. Don't love the below average range. Do like the high baseball IQ and a pretty well-balanced bat that can be above average at everything and potentially outstanding in terms of his gap power. Boomer Moreno with a $1.9 million demand, a little cheaper than Castellan and much cheaper than Tarin. Vic Martinez, 17-year-old, looking for $2.2 million. The third baseman, another guy who's pretty well balanced in terms of his batting profile. Think that the home run power and the eye could be better for him. Not great range, but other than that, certainly looks like a guy who could play third base or first base at the major league level. Martinez also is a guy who could certainly play left or right field if the bat was good enough, which would probably require him reaching his full potential in everything. Could probably play him at DH as well. 3 other prospects to talk about. Third baseman Pablo Triple T Cutita, pretty good looking defensive prospect, although he's not really good at turning the double play. Brilliant speed and pretty good base running instincts already. Like the durability. I think his contact could be well above average with outstanding gap power to go with that great speed. The home run power and the eye, both in theory, a little bit below average if he reaches his full potential. But Triple T Cutita, certainly an interesting prospect. Wilfred Humpty Bocapecchi, 16-year-old, also durable, more of a well-balanced bat, gap power, a particular strength of his, although the speed isn't great. Another guy with extreme development risk and not the best-looking defensive prospect in the world. Certainly could play first base and could play a mediocre corner outfielder if we needed him to. Both Bocapecchi and Cutita looking for in the neighborhood of $3 million. Only a $1.6 million demand from the highest potential prospect in the pool, Carlos Espinoza, who at 18 years old, also one of the older prospects in the pool. Not necessarily impressed with him defensively, but with that 6'6" height and those defensive ratings, think he could be a absolutely outstanding defensive first baseman, although certainly not going to play him anywhere else. Mixed personality, like the high loyalty, work ethic, and financial ambition. Don't love the low baseball IQ. Do like the durability. Another guy who we're very worried about the strikeouts, also worried about the contact. The gap power is solid. The reason Espinosa we think is such a ceiling, though, is that the home run power and the eye both could be basically off the charts. So a guy, if he reaches his full potential, who can hit a ton of home runs and draw a lot of walks, which is a pretty potentially attractive combination. So certainly with Espinosa, Bocapecci, Cutita, Martinez, Moreno, Turin, and Castellon, some interesting position players for us to think about bringing on board. Back for a quick look at the pitchers, Navarro, Reyes, and Correa, also interesting as well. Certainly think there's multiple ways we could go. We've typically been focused the last several years on offering all of our money to a top prospect and hoping, which historically has kind of been one of the paths to some level of success in international amateur free agency and OOTP. Certainly could consider going for a more diversified class this year. Would love thoughts from the worldwide scouting department on what you might do. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.